Hi, welcome to the DRH show, where I have wide-ranging conversations with fascinating people. We talk about all things psychology, mental health, and wellness. Today, I'm joined by a psychotherapist, John Paul Davies. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
It's great to have you here, John Paul. So if you could just chat to us your background, your trajectory in life, and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yes, background-wise, I was a solicitor before, so I did that for about 10 years, and then I took a career break where I did a screenwriting course and also a foundation year in counselling and psychotherapy. And I did some voluntary work for Terence Higgins Trust on their phone line. So yeah, I did that for a year, and the counselling and therapy was the thing I enjoyed most. So I did ask actually to go back to work as a solicitor in the city part-time and then do the counselling and therapy as well on a part-time basis, just to help with the transition into a career in counselling and therapy. But that wasn't possible. So I continued for 4 more years doing the counselling and psychotherapy training. And now I work full-time in private practice from a therapy room at home, and also do some writing work and the media work as well.
Now, John Paul, it's rather a non-linear path, from being a solicitor now to being a counselor and a psychotherapist. So I was just wondering, what do you find most rewarding about your current career?
Well, it's whereas I suppose with a solicitor, I felt like I sometimes was trying to perform a role. Really, the thing that's most rewarding about the counselling and therapy that I do is that it feels like it's very real, very honest, and it's something that's much more natural in terms of my personality. I would say when I was in the legal world, I was always looking for ways to make it more human in some ways, perhaps do a more of a support role, more of a training role, that kind of thing, have more client contact. But that wasn't really the main focus of it. It was about the sort of legal work and doing the deals. So what I realized when I went to do counselling and therapy training is that it's much more natural in terms of my personality. I would say a much better fit. So from that point of view, it's incredibly rewarding because I do something which doesn't really feel like work most of the time, which I love doing. I am now at a stage where I can choose the clients that I work with, where I have a pretty full practice. So I don't have the anxieties that I may have had at the beginning as far as starting a business and those kind of things. So it's it's a very rewarding career. And then on top of that, now I do the writing too, which is another way to help people and get the message out to people in a different format than the one-to-one therapy work.
As you've said, John Paul, you have a rather busy schedule as a psychotherapist. And I would also imagine that because of the lockdown, your schedule has dramatically changed. But can you give me a snapshot of what your typical workday is like as a psychotherapist?
Sure, yes. Some client sessions, some days I start as early as 8 o'clock. I see a couple of clients in the morning, then perhaps 2 in the afternoon, usually 1 in the evening. I used to do more in the evening, but have cut that down over time. So I will see probably 4 or 5 clients a day for the 5 days. I also have time to do other things in terms of exercise, mindfulness, meditation, go for walks locally as well. And the other important thing is training, ongoing training as well. So I always spend an hour or 2 a week doing some sort of continuing professional development about developments in counselling and therapy, and as well, because I work in private practice, it can be quite isolating. Of course, I see my clients, which is great, but obviously in terms of the confidentiality, I can't speak to friends or family about what I do as a job. So I also build into the week, and most days, conversations with other therapists locally too, on a kind of supervision basis as well. So, and then the writing sometimes too. So whether that's providing some comments for a newspaper or a magazine, or recording a podcast or something like that. So it's quite a varied range of work, but the primary basis of it would be my client work.
Now, you find it quite isolating to work within private practice, but at the same time, you also enjoy the flexibility and the freedom that it gives you. But what can you give us more, other challenges of working in private practice? Because your insights might be helpful for some people who's not so sure whether they go into private practice or they go to working for an individual, working for an entity rather.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of the benefits of working in private practice, I mean, it's that flexibility of your time and how I use my time, and also who I work with in terms of clients as well. I know there are a particular type of clients I would work better with than others, and I'm now at a stage where I'm able to make sure that's what makes up my week. If you're working for an organisation, then clients will the people that you work with. I think it's much more outside of your own. Your choice as to who you work with. So, that's a great thing about being in private practice. The difficulty, as with any business working for yourself, is that we have a situation where if I don't work from tomorrow, then I don't have an income. So there is more pressure, I would say, with working in private practice than there would be if I was working for an organisation. There's getting the clients, making sure that they come through, and also there's a lot of other admin as well, like insurance, data protection, contracts, making sure that the money is coming in too, and a number of those things would be dealt with by an organisation if you were within an organisation. So, I mean, for me, the benefits far outweigh any challenges with it, particularly at the stage of the career that I'm at now. But there are definitely some challenges.
Absolutely. And is it more of a one-man team, or do you have a set of people working to help you manage your, let's say, for instance, your booking? Do you have any other people who help you?
No, I do all of that myself, actually. Yeah. So, spreadsheets of client times and hours, and then income. I have somebody, an accountant, who does the balance sheet and profit and loss account in terms of the business. But other than that, I do everything myself. There are software packages and things available now for people where you can. Those things are done on a more automated basis, but I quite like having control of my diary myself. I like taking inquiries myself, because then I can speak to the people that are coming through. I can see the emails that come through and get a feel for who it is that's coming through and what it might be like to work together. So I basically keep control pretty much of everything, as I say, apart from doing my accounts as the self-assessment form for Inland Revenue every year.
And during the lockdown, has there been an impact when it comes to your counseling practice, or you pretty much transition into doing everything online?
As far as working online, I mean, there was the initial lockdown, everybody had to go online. So, and I think that was quite difficult for some people. Some people who'd never been online didn't know that it was actually, it still works well enough. There are some difficulties with online as far as, the Wi-Fi things dropping out, not being able to see sometimes people as clearly as you would face to face, and also confidentiality for some people as well. But yes, so everybody initially went over to that. It worked pretty well, I think. But now the majority of people have come back face to face. As soon as I was able to see face to face, as soon as it was legal, I suppose I did, with the relevant precautions, I did do that, because I do prefer face-to-face work with people for all those reasons, really, as far as being able to see somebody's body language. 80% of communication is non-verbal between people, so it's good to be able to have people in the room and see how they tell a story or communicate things. But as I say, some people do a mixture now. It works for them some days because they've got a meeting or they need to be at home for a particular reason. So they'll suggest we do Skype or Zoom and then come the next week. So, that works very well, actually.
Absolutely. You mentioned Skype or Zoom, and a few months ago, I did a panel talk with a team from Kuva. I don't know if you've heard of them, but basically it's an alternative for Zoom or Skype. And what they're doing is that they said that they have a more control of privacy, because, like Zoom, that these are proprietary services. Have you used those platforms like Kuva, or you just stuck to Zoom and Skype?
I just stick to Zoom and Skype. Sometimes people will FaceTime or WhatsApp. sometimes the signal is better on some than others. So mainly I would use Zoom, but some people are just happy to FaceTime.
Absolutely.
And other people prefer Skype. So I use a range of things, really. It's probably 2/3 of the people that I see now would be face-to-face, and about a third still continue online. There are a couple of people that came through online during lockdown, as I say, and they have continued to be online. So yeah, and as I say, it works very well. You know, rather than having to be in the same geographical area as the therapist, I can now see people who are in different countries, which is great.
Absolutely. But of course, like what you've said, that we have to balance. There's some things which are diminished when you do everything online, like those body language, like what you've said. Now, of course, a lot of people clearly benefit from, having psychotherapy and having counseling. But you as a person, how have you benefited, or how has becoming a therapist changed you?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed me very significant, really. The reason that I went in to train as a therapist was because I was having therapy and it was working very well for me. The person who was my therapist at the time was a tutor at my college. So when I was taking a career break, it was something I was very drawn to try. And I went to the college, as I say, that my therapist was a tutor at. So that all worked well. But I think more generally, it has made me more fearless. I think I would be braver about things. I would trust people much more. In terms of past experience for me, I would have narrowed my social circle a bit. Stayed within a comfort zone, and certainly the training. I was introduced to lots more different people. I went to a transpersonal college. It's integrative, so a different types of therapy, existential psychoanalysis, CBT, all of them are covered, but also the transpersonal, which was quite a different way of looking at things compared to the sort of legal way of looking at the world, that more sort of left brain logical way. So that really broadened my mind in terms of the people that were on the course and the types of things I was looking at there. So yeah, I think it's made me much more open-minded. As I said, I would be braver with things. I would trust myself more in terms of my voice. I would trust other people more. And all those things feed into your physical well-being as well. So, the better, I would be less stressed, get less angry about things. And that means my physical well-being is better. I would find it easier to focus on things and do the things that I want to do. So I can't in some ways think of a way that it has made my life worse. It's improved it in so many ways.
Now, John Paul, you already alluded to the kind of school of thought of psychotherapy that you practice. You mentioned something about integrative, but for the uninitiated, could you tell us more about what kind of practice it is and how does it compare with other school of thought?
Yeah, so integrative, I mean, my understanding of that is there are a number of different schools of psychotherapy, some of which people will commonly have heard of, other people, others that they may not. But things like psychoanalysis, a lot of people will have heard of it, even if they're not sure of what it might involve. Cognitive behavioural therapy is around a lot as far as the NHS. And then there's, existential therapy, person-centred, and a number of others. So an integrative course integrates and teaches the various kind of key main schools of therapy, which means you can take those aspects that fit with you and what you think is helpful for people, and also means you can apply different things with different clients as well. I mean, the thing is about different theories, it's been shown in research that the most helpful thing as far as clients is actually the relationship in therapy, rather than necessarily the particular school of therapy that somebody comes from. But of course, with clients, a lot of the theory is very helpful. Some of the things in CBT I would use bits and pieces for psychoanalysis, and then a person-centered approach of empathy, congruence, those things is around all the time as well. So yes, so it's you being able to access that sort of range of therapy schools and take those things which I think more suit your personality and will suit the personality of the client as well. I mean, actually, the type of therapy that I would practice a lot of, the sort of paradigm that I would use mainly is something called compassion focused therapy, which I didn't actually learn about on the course specifically. It was something I learned through continuing professional development afterwards. So they have a basic model of threat, reward, and connection. So the threat would be the fear and anger, that sort of survival place, and then the drives to make money, have sex, compete for resources, eat, and then connection, which is sort of that love of self and love of others. So the main idea behind it is that we have a natural tendency to spend more time in threat and probably drive, but they're not really the places of sustained happiness for people. The place that is that place of love of self and others, that more connection with others. And I would use that actually often as a way of sort of filtering information that's coming from clients in the therapy room. And my book was based on that model as well, as is the online course that I've done. So yes, but I will use bits and pieces of everything, things that I find that I think would be helpful with clients. And as I say, also, there's an ongoing process of, for me, it's 40 hours a year at least that I have to do of continuing professional development. So I'm always learning, there's internal family systems, lots of different ways of looking at things and people. They overlap, a lot of them, but I think they all have something to them. So it's great to be able to take from various schools.
You mentioned about your book. Please tell us more about it.
Yes. So I started, it came out in 2019. I see now, it seems to have flown past, but I wrote it over the course of probably 4 or 5 years. I was always interested in writing. One of the reasons I did the screenwriting course during my career break was because of that interest. And I could see that with the writing as well, it's another way of getting out to the sort of message and to help more people. So I was writing little bits that perhaps things that clients said, things that I found helpful from the CPD that I was doing, from my own therapy, from various different sources. Music was a big thing as well. I mean, when I originally wrote the first draft of the book, it had a lot of song lyrics and things in it. I would listen to a lot of music and be inspired by music. I then subsequently found out that I would have to get the approval of every person of that song lyric and probably also pay somebody as well to be able to use them. So that all fell away. But it was a process over 4 or 5 years, as I say, from lots of different things, various different people, more formal stuff that I learned at college, and it all sort of integrated into one model, really. So as I say, I was making notes for 4 or 5 years, and then the actual process of writing it probably took 18 months, 2 years, and then I had an editor who went through it all and edited quite a lot of it, and it went backwards and forwards for sort of 3 rounds of editing, and I self-published it on Amazon. The great thing, whether people like Amazon or not, one of the great things about it is you can self-publish something yourself tomorrow and put it out there. Of course, for people to buy it, people have to know about it, but the whole thing is a very democratic process now, which is great. So that was 2019, and then I've continued to write things, lots of things since.
You actually gave me a complimentary copy of your book, so thank you very much.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll pop in the link to your book, so for anyone who wants to read about your insights and your experience as a psychotherapist, they can grab a copy. I was navigating your website, and you talk about the difference between toxic positivity and positive psychology. Could you tell us more about that?
Yes, definitely. What I said about compassion focused therapy, and one of the main things behind that, my understanding of it, being that it's putting more energy into that place of connection with self and others, love of self and others, because in the form of compassion, so loving kindness to self primarily as far as relationship with self, but that also will go out to other people and improve, therefore, relationship with self and relationship with other people, and really kind of crowd out our natural tendency to worry about things. So there is, with that, I suppose, if you're looking at compassion, that concept of loving kindness, a tendency that I would have to focus on encouraging people to be kinder to themselves, to be more loving to themselves. The thing about that, which can get a bit mixed up with, is that issue of toxic positivity, which is around at the moment, which is the idea that if we allow ourselves to feel any fear or anger or sadness, then that's somehow what we're putting out into the world, and that's what's going to come back. I have had some people say to me, they might have read The Secret, for example, and that book says that what you give out to the world, you get back. So the only way that you're going to get the things that you want, fundamentally, the secret to that is to be ultimately a positive person all the time. You can imply that from what they say, but the difficulty with that, of course, is feelings. So fear, anger, all of them, some which somebody might frame as negative, are absolutely necessary and appropriate parts of human experience. And if we stop ourselves feeling them or try to avoid them on the basis that we're not being positive enough, and that will therefore attract difficulty and problem into our lives, if we don't get to feel them, we don't get to move through them. If you're looking at a feeling like sadness, people only get to move through sadness if they actually feel it. Most of us will have the experience of crying about something and feeling better once we've done that. So if we have a belief, that kind of toxic positivity, really, that I have to always be happy, then unfortunately, but there's a couple of things that will happen. We'll get stuck in feeling, probably. We'll get stuck in the feelings we want to avoid. And we also are potentially losing the important messages that those feelings give us. So if we are angry about something, that is telling us something that might be crossing over our boundaries, something that we want to stop happening, or something needs to start happening. So anger is a very important boundary emotion. If you look at, something like fear, of course, it's got a very important safety message for us. So it's got a very, it's the reason we're still here as far as our survival. It protects our physical and our psychological safety. So it's really important that we allow ourselves to feel those feelings and to give them space and to allow ourselves to move through them. And as I say, toxic positivity is a term that's been coined for a situation of not allowing somebody to do that, or not allowing ourselves to do that, or feeling bad for feeling angry or for feeling sad, particularly. The other side of things, though, is that sort of positive psychology and compassion focused therapy, that we do have a tendency to get stuck in fear, to get stuck in anger, and that those things feed themselves if we're not careful. So if we are socially anxious, for example, the behavior that goes with anxiety tends to be avoidance. So if we listen to that feeling all the time, we will avoid people. And if we avoid people, it leaves us less psychologically safe. So we become more anxious, and therefore we feel more socially anxious. Therefore we avoid people, and you get caught in a vicious circle, really. So there's also, as well as allowing ourselves to feel fear, allowing ourselves to feel anger, feel hopeless, helpless sometimes, or for a period of time, we also, I think, need to be actively managing those parts too, to make sure they're not feeding themselves, and to make sure that they are, as I say, managed as part of our lives and don't take over. And that's more the positive psychology side of things. And as I say, compassion focused therapy, my understanding of it, which would be to be more deliberate about our kindness to ourselves, our kindness to others, our love of ourselves and our love of others.
Jean-Paul, you're quite active when it comes to knowledge exchange. In fact, you've written a number of articles for PsychReg, and there's one article that really I find interesting, the title of which is "We Need to Level Up from Banter, Here's Why." Now, for the benefit of those people who hasn't read your work, which, by the way, I'll put the link on the description notes, what's the reason for leveling up when it comes to banter?
Yeah, the reason for leveling up, I would hear it quite a lot. I mean, I see quite a lot of, because of my age, I'm not that young, but because I'm relatively younger, there's some other therapists around too, I would see a lot of younger people, so people in their 20s, and because of my gender as well, I would see an amount of younger men, and they seem to, and it's the same with younger women and some older men as well, but love banter. And that seems to be something that's a huge asset in terms of what quality they see in themselves and perhaps other people too. I always wonder about it, and the reason for the article is making sure that it is something that people are using to strengthen connection with other people. Just using that compassion focused therapy model, what we want to be doing, the way I see it, I guess, is to be putting more focus and attention on connecting with ourselves and connecting with other people. The trouble with banter is, of its nature, the definition of it is that it's teasing someone about their flaws, so about their problems. And of course, that can show potentially trust in relationship, that we can do that. Humor is a great thing for relationship. Strong, healthy relationships are often characterized by a lot of humor in them. There's a lot of humor that I would have in the therapy room with clients as well. I think it's great. The thing is, though, if you're consistently teasing somebody about their flaws, and that can happen, it can grow to dominate in people's relationships. It can be the key way in which they relate to someone is to be going backwards and forwards with pointing out each other's flaws and laughing at them. And the thing that I would say about it, as I say, humor is a great thing, but banter can really cloak a number of other things as well. If it's the only way we relate to other people and it's difficult to tell them why we like them and love them, I think there's a problem there potentially. It's also, I think, used to cloak anger sometimes. So if we struggle to say something directly, which a lot of people do because of the environment they grew up in, they will struggle to express anger in a clear, calm way. They might do it by humor. So and banter is a way of doing that. It might also be a way of demeaning somebody and making myself feel superior in a group by putting somebody else down. All these different ways, which I just don't think are about connection. I don't think are about the gratitude, the grounding my own worth and value, grounding other people's worth and value, that are the empathy, those sorts of things, as I say, loving kindness with compassion, those things which are the cornerstones, I think, of good connected relationships, both with myself and also with other people. So I just think it's something that we have to be, or it's important to be noticing why we're using it and noticing what it's used for.
But John Paul, if you deploy humor or more particularly banter as a tool, you also run the risk of offending someone. So how do you manage that risk?
Yes, well, I mean, personally, I don't do it very much. So I think I manage the risk by I would only use banter, I think, with people that I've known for a long time and that I've been in a long-term friendship, family relationship with. So it would not be something that I would use with strangers, for example, because absolutely, with what you say, people have gone through various things in life which we have no idea about. And the thing about humor and banter is, the important thing is not that it's not funny because I find it funny. It's going to be funny because the other person does. So I would generally, I think, certainly with new people, I would steer clear of it personally, but that's not a kind of therapy idea. That's a personal preference. I mean, I have met someone who said, and this is with groups of men, that the way he relates to other people other men is to find their Achilles heel and then to go for that. And that will be, any new person into the group, that's what he'll be doing. So it's absolutely what some people will do with strangers and people they don't know at all. Of course, it's all on the basis that somebody's going to find that funny. But the difficulty is, as I say, we don't know what somebody's history has been. We don't know whether they've been through bullying. We don't know what their body image is like, what they think about their intelligence or lack of it. People have all sorts of things going on internally, which we can't see. What people are thinking, we don't know what their experience of it's going to be. So personally, my tendency would be to avoid it unless I know somebody very well.
Absolutely. Now, John Paul, you have quite a popular presence when it comes to media, newspapers and podcasts. So what led you to, be present in these platforms?
Yes, well, when I released the book, I realized, as I say, that you can put a self-published book out on Amazon, but it's potentially no one will read it if it's self-published, because you don't have the kind of publishing house behind you who can do the promotion and those kind of things. So I realized that I was going to need people to know about it. because I wanted people to read it. So I employed a PR company just for a 2-week campaign, and they approached various different people, some local radio, Healthy for Men magazine, various other media. So I did that for 2 weeks, and then I got those contacts through that, and I carried on with some of the journalists who I'd spoken to, carried on asking me for input into various other articles and things that they were then producing. And then personally, I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to carry on doing it as well, just as an additional part of what I do, really. As I say, at the beginning, it was initially there to help promote the book, but I think it's a great way to get messages out there. There's something about doing the media work as well, which is very different to the therapy work, in that they want kind of quick, clear messages. So in therapy, it's a lot of curiosity about things, wondering about things. In open-ended therapy, you have lots of time. There's also something quite nice about having to distill something into quite a concise message for people. And as I say, I've written things in articles and something, or said things in podcasts where clients have come through from that because they've listened to it. There's so many different ways now, particularly through podcasts and things, that people can hear well-being information and get psychological information, and it can be really incredibly helpful for them. So I've really enjoyed that part of it and continued doing it. The other great thing is that my accrediting body, so UKCP, there's also another one, BACP, they have PR representatives within them now, and if anybody from media, I don't know, the Times, Stylist magazine, Vogue, are looking for people to contribute, they will go to, or looking for therapists, psychotherapists, counsellors to provide a comment, they will go to UKCP and their PR person, and I'm also on their list as far as a spokesperson for UKCP. So that's another good way of meeting journalists and providing these contributions.
Absolutely. You've clearly outlined the benefits of being public, if you will, in the media landscape. But can you give us some challenges or disadvantages if you're involved into this more public role?
Yes. As far as disadvantages, there is the amount that you put yourself out there, I suppose. That very much, my understanding initially in terms of therapy when it first started, is that the therapist was to be a blank screen. So the client, they would look at a wall, lie on a couch and look at a wall, and the therapist wouldn't really do or say that much at all, provide some interventions. But of course, with becoming a social media, with the media, and me actively going out there onto the media, I will post things which tell clients quite a lot about who I am and the types of things that I believe. So that more public side of things, I like it. There is always how much personal information do I put out? Instagram, people like pictures of people as well as the quotes and those kind of things. So there is that challenge as to what of myself I put out there, whether I'll post a picture of myself and my daughter or something like that, or not. Do I say it's my birthday, or those kind of things? I again would err on the side of caution there, really, and wouldn't put much public personal information about myself out there. But if I do, it's those sorts of things that people tend to respond to very well. So people, if you're looking at buying a book, for example, or buying an online course, or even coming to a therapist, a lot of younger people now will go to somebody that they think they know or they've built a relationship with on social media. So so for me, there's that big question about the balance of how much of myself I put out there, how much personal information I put out there. And then, of course, being on, Instagram, I find lovely, Facebook, nice enough, LinkedIn, very professional, interesting. I find Twitter a bit more difficult as far as the sorts of energy that's on there, really. So I think, that different social media means different things for me as well. So I would manage my time, I suppose, and restrict my time much more on something like Twitter, just because of the effect that it has on me, actually. But I would say the benefits of being more public, the benefits of being on social media for me, in terms of who I can reach, the contact that I can have with people, the fun that I can have greatly outweighs the difficulties. I mean, I would probably struggle with being 18 with the amount of social media use that I have, but knowing myself much more, which is one of the benefits that therapy gives, I've found, knowing who I am makes it much easier to discriminate the kind of likes, the dislikes, any negative comments that I might get, those kind of things.
Absolutely. And it's not just within the psychotherapeutic sector. Obviously, I'm a content creator. I rely a lot on social media. Just like I tend to discriminate on what kind of social media platforms I would engage into. I also find Twitter a bit difficult to, in terms of your mental health, because people tend to be too political and too aggressive on Twitter. So for my case, Instagram also doesn't work for me. So I just limit it to two. So I just predominantly use Facebook and
Right.
LinkedIn as well. You mentioned earlier about online course, and I understand that you've released an online course. So what prompted you to do this, John Paul?
Yes, I mean, for two reasons. It's an accessibility thing again. Yeah, I mean, I now, as I say, have a waiting list of clients, which I'm at the moment closing, unfortunately, just because it would take so long to see somebody. So accessibility, everybody has mostly people now have a PC or a phone that they can access course material on. People are used to that. Certainly going through lockdown, people spent a lot more time on their devices, a lot more time on their PCs, I think was the general impression I get. So podcasts, again, is something that means that people consume kind of psychological information from their phones, from their PCs. So it made sense, when I'm limited in the number of hours that I can see with clients, to add another way that anybody can access, again, all over the world, to kind of communicate the information that I think is going to be helpful for people. So it's based quite a lot on the book. It's, sets out the basic theory, again, based mostly on a compassion focused therapy model, and then takes somebody through 10 steps to help improve their well-being. So the other thing, there's actually the practical accessibility, as I say, reaching more people through phones, through PCs. And there's also a cost thing, of course. Therapy is quite an expensive thing, which is not something that everybody can afford. If you add, weekly and open-ended therapy, it's pretty expensive. So with something like the book and the course, is less than the cost of a one-to-one therapy session. So it's another way of making things more accessible, another way of getting the information out to more people that I think is going to be helpful for them.
Just out of curiosity, John Paul, I have no idea how much a counseling course would cost you. So just give us a ballpark figure.
Oh, well, I mean, that's the thing about pricing it. It was interesting doing it. Some people said, "Oh, charge £1,500," and then somebody else, and I said, well, I think I've charged £99, and someone said, gosh, that's very expensive. So actually, so it is difficult. There are people out there with £10,000 courses. There are people out there with £19.99 courses. So my course is £47 at the moment, and as I say, that's less than the price of a one-to-one therapy session, but it is a difficult one to price. I would rather more people were able to see it than trying to keep pushing up the price to make more money. It's not really about the money for me at all. So yes, so £47. But if you go on to I think it's Udemy, who provide course material, you can buy courses from them. They will have 20 hours of personal development courses for £19.99 because they want to sell volumes of courses. So it's another interesting world to be in. It's been interesting to learn about it, to find out about it, ways of marketing it. Again, going onto social media, Instagram, Facebook, running little adverts, recording an advert about the course and those things. I find it all interesting, and another aspect to a kind of an interesting day for me to be doing that too. As throughout all of this, my primary work is absolutely with my clients face to face. It's just, I suspect over the next few years, I'll probably be taking down by a few hours a week the number of people that I see. So yes, it's a way of reaching millions of people around the world potentially.
Absolutely. And actually, in conjunction to your online course, you do some mentoring work, or where you help people who are navigating career paths and also want to, start their therapy practice. So how did you come about this mentoring work?
Well, I mentioned UKCP, my accrediting body, a bit earlier. So because a lot of people, of course, come into counselling and therapy as a second career, there aren't many people, some people may not have had a career before, but there aren't many people that come in it as their primary career. So they put up a number of different little excerpts, a little description from various people about how they made what they did originally and how they made that transition. And I got a lot of inquiries. I think there are about 10 people that UKCP put up on their website. And I got lots of inquiries, mainly through LinkedIn, actually, because it was a lot of lawyers, because they saw the story, career change from solicitor to psychotherapist, who were talking about making the change. So lots of people coming through wanting to talk about it, which is lovely. The more people that want to do that, I'm more than happy to speak to them. And then because of that, I recorded a little YouTube video of about a 20-minute video, something like that, which were some of the questions that kept coming up. And then UKCP put that on their website as well, under my little, what I'd written. And it gets hundreds and hundreds of views on YouTube, because people seem to be so interested in that career change, particularly going into the psychotherapy, psychology world. And so because of all the calls, because I decided I would also add a service to what I do, which is, as I say, to talk to people about the career change, what it's like, and setting up, as you said, the private practice as well, because there isn't a lot of training included on therapy courses about the private practice and what it's like and how, and of course it's just my experience of it. It's a subjective experience, but I thought it seemed to be very valuable for people talking about that and what it was like making a transition from a full-time career to a full-time therapist, and how I did that. And so yes, so that's the reason for doing that. A one-to-one service, I would charge an hourly rate for that with people now. Of course, I'll have a conversation for nothing with somebody if they want to have a chat about it too. But I've put something more formal out there. And the next thing that I'll be recording as well will be a little course again on setting up a private practice, which I'll sell through the website, I think. So that's my next project.
And all of this, the information relating to this is available on your website.
It is, yeah.
Now, John Paul, you've already spent a good time working as a psychotherapist, as a counselor. So I would imagine that you have come across a number of misconceptions about psychotherapy. So if you could just take this as an opportunity to kind of identify some misconceptions and address them.
Okay. Yes. So I did a little video about this, actually. There's certain things that people say about therapy and would commonly say. Certain things like it's self-indulgent, for example. I would hear that quite a lot. For a lot of us, depending on how we've grown up and the environment we grew up in, any talking about ourselves, any thinking about what we need and want, any putting in boundaries can get labelled as selfish in our minds, because that was how it was labelled, or that's how it appeared to caregivers as we were growing up, it seems. So I would hear that quite a lot about how people feel a bit self-conscious talking about themselves. Of course, if it's not something we're used to doing, we're very much somebody who listens to other people or pleases other people, takes care of other people. Your needs, wants, talking about your feelings, it is often not something that people are used to doing. So there can be, as I say, a bit of a misconception that is that it's somehow self-indulgent. I mean, I think it's absolutely fundamental and essential self-care. My fundamental responsibility is to take care of myself and any dependents, and I can only do that if I know what it is that I want and need in life and are able to communicate that to other people. And if I am doing that, it makes me more helpful to other people anyway. So yes, so there is that around that sort of selfishness. Sometimes people are concerned about looking back. They think if you look back, you get stuck in the past, and they only want to look forward. So, you know, there can be a misconception, I suppose, that therapy is a lot about staying in the past and turning over the past and how angry we are with people in the past and those things. The thing that I would say about looking at the past is the only way we can understand who we are now, what we want from the future, where we're going, is to understand where we've come from, really. And for a lot of us, we would have closed things that happened in the past in a way that probably blames ourselves. So we would have closed things in a way which may be unhelpful for us as far as beliefs about ourselves and others for our future life, which is the reason perhaps people have come to therapy. So I would not be somebody that goes over and over and over the past, unless somebody, of course, wants to go over the past a lot. But we absolutely, to understand what we want from the future, I think to get what we want from the future, to be happy in the moment, I think we do need to look back for a period about what's happened to us and understand, really, and make conscious the sorts of beliefs that we've developed about ourselves and other people that are the basis on which we're making every decision that we make now in this present moment.
And John Paul, what would you say are the 3 particular highlights of your career?
Yes, I would say, I mean, there'd be so many as far as the client work. I mean, it's all confidential, of course, but more generally, you know, people who get into relationships, who weren't in relationships before. Now I've been doing this for around 10 years. You know, some people have been coming for a long time. So you get to see people going through, you know, really significant changes in their lives, perhaps career changes where they, you know, have the courage or find that thing that they want to do and it changes their life completely. As I say, get into new relationships, potentially have children, leave a relationship, of course, that may have been toxic for them, and, you know, that life opens up and the world opens up as a result of that. So there would be so many moments that I would have with clients on a one-to-one basis. It's just that the specifics of that from a confidentiality point of view wouldn't be something I could, I suppose, talk about in detail. I mean, there have been a couple of other lovely ones, one which came from the book, and the book being out there, which was that I was speaking to somebody who said that their husband had been recommended a self-help book by his therapist, and it turned out that that was my book. And he was finding it very helpful and reading it. So I could sort of, and that was a very proud moment for me in some ways, that, you know, another therapist had thought that it was good enough to recommend and that it was being found helpful by this other person who, of course, you know, if he gets something from the book which he finds helpful, that helps his marriage and therefore my client. And so, you know, that was a very proud moment, definitely. And the other third one I would say is I recorded a podcast with a Guardian journalist called Annalisa Barbieri earlier this year about, it was a series with psychotherapists and psychiatrists. I think there were 6 of them, about various different subjects: sibling rivalry, the effect of trauma on the brain. My one was on how to know whether your relationship was worth saving. And so I recorded the podcast, and I saw it went out, but I didn't really hear that much about it, or didn't think that much about it afterwards. But then I started to see that the book was selling a lot more. You know, you can track on Amazon book sale kind of thing. And also, so was my online course. And I realized that it was because the podcast series, 6 of them, as I say, had got to, I think, number 3 on Apple's chart, and it was number 1 in society and culture for a while. So not that this is about, you know, success or, you know, other people, lots of people thinking this is great. It is about the fact that you know, messages being able to get out there to people which they find helpful, and, you know, having a voice and being, as I say, brave enough to be out there with it. You know, that was, again, a very proud moment for me. And it, you know, it still seems to do well now, the podcast as well. And I've had clients that have come through on the basis of it. So lots of moments, really. I'm, you know, proud of what I do as a job, love what I do. I love the clients that I work with. So it is, even though there are challenges, of course, it's moment after moment, really.
Absolutely. Those are some quite fascinating highlights, John Paul. But is there a particular individual who has the greatest influence on your work?
Individual with the greatest influence? Well, I think the guy that came up with compassion-focused therapy, I would say. in terms of how I see things, one of the greatest influences on me was Prince, who I dedicated the book to, and his book, that book would be full of Prince lyrics if I had been allowed to do that. So, therapy wise, compassion focused therapy, as I say, is a great model. I would say, I think it's Paul Gilbert that came up with that. I mean, I do take lots of things from lots of different schools of thought, and Buddhism and transpersonal psychotherapy as well incorporates Eastern and Western spiritual traditions. So many, really, I would say. But personal inspiration, I would say, for a lot of this would be Prince.
And John Paul, for those who want to follow your footsteps, who also contemplating about, moving from one career to another, what's your advice?
My advice would be to do it. I know that might sound quite strange if I don't know somebody, but the thing that I see when people come through, as I say, I've talked to lots of people via LinkedIn, various other ways, is that something is drawing them to do it. So rather than, which was the case with me really, with law, it was an outward in thing to do, something I should do, ought to do, status, those sorts of things. Often, and certainly for me, it was something that was inward out. So something that I was enjoying doing, that I loved doing, that I was drawn to, that I could go out to the world with. So, on a one-to-one basis in a therapy room, when I say out to the world. So generally, when I'm having conversations with people, that's the place that they're in. They are drawn to do this thing. It might be working with families, it might be working with children, it might be working with couples, one-to-one. So I would absolutely say, if you are drawn to do something, you will just do the course. I would say do an integrative course, I think, so that you can look at the different schools. As I say, the thing that I practice mostly is something I didn't learn at college anyway. So in some ways, the course is a way through to, is a gateway to lots of different things as well. But I would absolutely encourage people to do it. And to start to make everything that you do, every book that you read, every podcast you listen to in that psychological world about well-being is all, knowledge and experience for that journey. So, it can be a long time. UKCP courses, accredited courses, are at least 4 years, plus a foundation year is 5 years. So I understand, as far as financial and practical implications of transitioning careers, it can be really difficult for people. But I would absolutely say, keep the faith. There is absolutely the thing I believe, that if you build it, they will come, in terms of a practice for people. If you do the thing that you love and that you enjoy and that works for you and that you think seems to work for some other people as well, I think if you go out to the world with that, it will happen.
What's your professional dream, or do you even have one?
Professional dream? Well, it wouldn't be that much different to the things that have happened now. I mean, I would like to do more of the kind of podcast work. I would like to do probably some more of the media work, but I would always love sitting with my clients, I think. So people say about another book, but I don't know. There isn't something I'm necessarily that driven to write about now. Potentially the career change, those things. But it will really be carrying on with, similar things to what I'm doing at the moment. Actually, it really is realizing a dream to be doing this, and because it's all about learning new things as well. And each week there's potentially somebody new to meet and a different story. There's always something new and fresh happening as well. It's not something that I ever get tired of doing, whether that is working with clients, meeting new people. Everybody's unique. Every story is different. And the same thing with the media work as well, actually. Some people that you meet are absolutely love the well-being and psychological side of things. They're interested in it. Some people are much more, it's something they need to get done for a deadline by tomorrow. And so it all adds to the interest. So it will really be doing more of the same. As I say, I probably will see a few less clients over the years and probably do a bit more of the media work, but that's as much as it will change, I suspect.
But looking back, John Paul, if you didn't become a psychotherapist, what do you think you would be doing now?
Gosh, if I didn't become a psychotherapist, I can't imagine. Well, I would probably still, I would still be within a law firm. I suspect. I think what I would have done, one of the reasons that I left law, I did think about doing a more alternative career. So within the law, so something which wasn't necessarily, I was at a stage, I was 10 years down the line where I'm a bit late for becoming a partner actually, but they have quite narrowly defined career structure path in law. So it's a trainee, assistant solicitor, senior solicitor, partner. So I was a senior solicitor. So the next thing I would have to have done, or it looks a bit odd, is to become a partner. And that was something that wasn't really something that appealed to me. But now I do hear that there are law firms have had to come up with alternatives. They want to keep people that have families who want to work less, long hours probably, but they want to give them more alternatives than just going that partnership route. So I suspect if there were good things about the law, there were interesting things about it. So perhaps I would have stayed in that and done something that was more about people, about training people maybe, or but yeah, I mean, my degree was a business management degree, and I originally tried to get jobs in marketing, and that wasn't possible at the time. So I continued to do law. I went, and that's why I got the career in law. But so marketing, the psychology side of that has always been interesting for me. But I mean, I do honestly, I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but I do pinch myself all the time that I can't see myself doing anything I would enjoy more. I don't think.
And finally, John Paul, the floor is all yours. Tell us what else is in the pipeline. If people wanted to reach out to you, what platforms can they get in touch with you at?
Yes, well, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Of course, the website is the main thing. I sell the book through that, and it's on Amazon as well. The online course is available via the website, my website as well, www.thistrustedplace.co.uk. But yeah, I mean, I have a YouTube channel too, so I sometimes record. It's just under my name, John Paul Davies. I do sometimes record some videos for that, and if I'm recorded something, an article, I might record that and put that up on YouTube as well. So it's always lovely to hear from people. If you want to have a chat about anything or ask about the career change or whatever that might be, do get in touch with me, as I say, either via the website or via YouTube, or via any of those social media channels.
Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll pop all those relevant links to the video description notes, especially the link to your website. Well, John Paul Davies, it's a pleasure having you here on the DRH show, but unfortunately, time is against us. I look forward to hearing more about your work.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.